Welcome to the football show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Alison McConnell, delighted to be joined by Allan Ruff and Scott Allan. So it's the morning after the night before, Scott. Are Rangers Champions League hopes, are they all over?
Yeah, for me, I think obviously the key was obviously staying in the tie, taking that away to Bruges, but I think just if you look at the previous rounds, I don't think they were of the same level as obviously Club Brugge. I've seen them last year at Celtic Park, thought they were excellent. Midfielder, the Greek boy who was seen in the summer against Scotland as well, top player. And listen, when you start a game like that, you give yourself a hell of a mountain to climb. So for me, it'll be a step too far.
What about you, Ruffy? Did you see enough in that second half performance that would maybe give any kind of hope, or would you need to be a blind optimist?
Yeah, I think you have to be positive, and that's all the manager's done. He's come out and said positive things, but you either take it on board or you don't, and it's up to the players to take it on board. I think the first half was horrendous, and I don't know where he gets to saying the goal late on in the game opens it up. You know, I don't get some of his stuff. You know, I don't. He's hanging on to, you know, and then throwing out the same lines. You know, it's a build, it's a working process. It's this, it's that. But
we're the chasers now.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but fans were there at the end of the game. The fans that weren't there in the game, they know exactly where they feel, and it was just a horrible performance.
I mean, 3-0 down so early on in the tie, you could hear the reaction at half-time, you could hear it at full-time, you could see it at points when they went 3-0 down, fans leaving the ground, spaces within the ground before the game. The bigger question really in the back of last night, and it might sound ridiculously early, Scott, but is it a question now, does Russell is he under pressure for his job at Rangers?
Yeah, I think if you look at the last few games, the fans are desperate to find something to connect to the team with, whether that's in an attacking sense, a defensive sense. I think, yes, you can touch on the second half, but naturally, Bruges, they're 3-0 up at half-time. I'll tell you, sit off the game. You don't need to go gung-ho. They can kind of manage the game, and they did. And they could still have scored a few goals if it wasn't for Jack Butland. So, St Mirren away on Sunday, you look at that. I think if you're St Mirren, you're Stephen Robinson watching the Rangers' performance of late, you look at the height St Mirren carry, they just throw the ball in the box, make Rangers defend, they look nervy. There's no question about that. Obviously, you get 3 lone players playing the back 4, which from my point of view, I don't like it. I don't think it's a good thing for the club. I think they should have someone in who they've signed and they're trying to improve and potentially maybe sell on. But I think he's under pressure just in terms of the games that are coming up. It doesn't get any easier. And it's a very tricky game away to St Mirren come Sunday.
Yeah, we'll look at that in a couple of minutes. But for you, Ruffy, do you think he's under pressure?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but I mean the results make it worse. You know, a win cushions it a wee bit. You know, obviously the game's coming up. St Mirren, Celtic, the away game. This one, you know, if you were to look ahead and say it's 3 defeats, he has to convince everybody it's a working process, and they all have to buy into it. At this moment in time, if you've just touched on the fans aren't buying into it. You know, they want success right away, or they're not going to stay and watch the team or get behind the team. So I think it's too much to sack him. I think he's obviously brought 10 odd players in, they're on contracts or whatever. You know, it'd be a big ask, you know, to throw it, bin it, but we saw American owners, you know, make strange decisions. They don't mess about. If they think they're not getting the success that they want, then they act very, very quickly.
8 games though, Ruffy, is it?
I don't think it's 8 games. Yeah, I think 8 games. I think there's obviously the 3 games I mentioned, maybe a month down the line. I mean, and it's all about points. It's where your biggest rivals are. If they were to go 10, 12, whatever points. It depends what he's been given to do. At the beginning when he came in, they would say, right, this is what you're getting, this is what we want you to do. If he starts not to tick the boxes that they've given him, then he's under pressure. But we don't know what the boxes are. He certainly will do. And if they don't get what they want, then they'll move on.
Are we guilty of being too reactionary, Scott?
We can be, but I think that's just the modern game. I think you've seen it a lot of places. Listen, you can lose games of football, but you can have performance there, the crowd, and then you do get that one. We've got a new team, but it's the performance overall over the last 8 games. You can handpick ones where you'd probably say that Rangers fans were really happy. So over the course of that season, if they can't see any increase in the performance, that doesn't amount to being successful and winning, whether it's a cup or a league trophy. So I think we talk about winning, but performance, when building a new team, there's got to be signs of performance there, and that's where I think the Rangers fans are losing their patience already.
He spoke about needing time, about turning the tanker, all the things that we've heard from previous Rangers managers, and you would see that maybe some of the frustrations at the club, among the club support, are maybe historic frustrations. Have you seen enough, Ruffy, to think that he can turn it around in the long term, or do you think you run out of road very quickly if you stumble against St Mirren
I think,
at the weekend?
Yeah, I think at the moment all he's getting is individual performances. He's getting certain players playing well. He's playing this week and he's done well, and that winger's done well, and Raskin's done well. He's not got a collective yet. He's not got 11 of them all playing to the level that they should be playing at. It's very, very disjointed. People are obviously asking the Tavernier question, you know, do you want him out the window, or you brought a young guy in? Is that him finished? Is that him gone? He's got lots of decisions that he's got to put forward, and the supporters again have got to buy into it.
It's an interesting point about James Tavernier, the second big European game that he's been left on the bench. You bring a 19-year-old loan player, he's barely in the door, he's registered the day before, and he's introduced and he's straight into the first 11. What would you take from that, Scott, as a player?
Well, I think, listen, James Tavernier's old enough now, he's been at Rangers, but he'll just bide his time. I think, first of all, I think Max Aarons has to be better than Tavernier in certain aspects of his game. I don't think the Rangers fans have seen that of yet, hence why he's been in, he's been out. I think in terms of the boy coming in on loan, Russell Martin knows him personally, so he obviously has a trust there, so I think that's an easier one to deal with, and in fairness, I thought he had a decent debut last night. Obviously sets a goal up for Danilo with a fantastic ball, but with James Tavernier, listen, he's been there a long time, so you've seen these things. Sometimes you need to obviously take your medicine, but it would not surprise me if he was back in Sunday, come St Mirren.
Would you take it that the manager just doesn't fancy him, Ruffy?
I think he wants to move on. He wants to show the owners that there are young players out there. You know, Scott said it, Tavernier has been absolutely amazing. The amount of goals he's scored, the amount of assists, you know, obviously penalties. If he was to move, I don't think anybody give any complaints. I think he's been fantastic. I just think the manager has a mindset now that he wants his own players in there, and that's what he's doing. He's identifying players that he had at Southampton or Swansea or whatever, and he's got them and clicked in the back of his mind that they could do a job for me. But I'm in Scott's camp. I don't like a lot of loan players. I remember a time, I don't know if you were there at Hibs, I think Hibs had 7 loan players, and they went to a semi-final, a cup final, and they got horsed.
Yep,
something.
that was before me, aye.
And you could say like there wasn't the same feeling in it, and I think when you get loan players in, okay if they come in and they do particularly well, but what you're doing is you're bringing loan players in and you've got players there already, and it's an uncomfortable situation you have when you're not playing. You know there's a lone guy there who's maybe there for a year and then he's going to be back to where he come from.
It's a strange one for a club like Rangers to have three out of your 4 in defence being loan players, and young loan players at that. It's something you would maybe see from a team lower in the Championship, and in my eyes not a club like Rangers.
And that first mistake, you know, 3 goals down within 20 minutes, but that goal after just 3 minutes, can a manager, do you have sympathy for a manager in that position when you see an individual error, and even the second goal, when you think the zonal marking leaves somebody entirely unmarked in the box? Yeah. Do you have a bit of sympathy at losing goals like that? Is some of that on the players?
I think these kind of goals come because there is no consistency in the team. But if you go into a team, well, I'm talking from a goalkeeping point of view. No, but if I'm a goalkeeper and I've got 4 guys in front of me, particularly 2 centre-halves, and I've been playing with them for a couple of years, I know his strengths. He knows my strengths. I know his weaknesses. He knows my weaknesses. And what you do is you help each other. That first goal in particular was just a lack of coordination, a lack of communication. You know, the big boy, I mean, that ball's travelled, what? 60 yards?
He's got...
60 yards.
Jiggy's got to go until he knows that the danger's going to be averted, and that's the thing.
He just seems to switch off.
I think it's looking for someone else to take responsibility. I feel that's the nervousness, obviously. Let's not get it wrong. See, when you're a player, and if you're a player at a club like Rangers, you can feel the nervousness and anxiousness when you're on the pitch, and you could see that quite evidently last night with the players, and that seeped in from losing goals against Alloa, obviously the performance against Dundee. Yes, obviously the away leg against Victoria Pilsen wasn't ideal, but they came through the tie. That's already, you can see it setting in, and some players will either sink, some players will swim.
That's the thing, when you could feel a level of nervousness, there's a fragility within Rangers, but you're in a catch-22 position because the only way that you change it is by winning games, getting a bit of confidence through winning games.
Leadership.
Performances.
You need leadership in that squad. Someone in the midfield demanding the ball at times under real pressure. A player who can put his foot in the ball and pick when to go forward, when not, take the sting out of the game. I think that's what Rothwell was meant to do, but till now we can't really see that. So having that calming influence in the middle of the park is like, I'll look at Celtic, they have that, and Hatate will always take the ball under pressure. And Callum McGregor, who obviously knows the club inside out. Right now in that midfield area for Rangers, for me, lost the midfield battle last night, but they don't have that calming influence on the ball.
Was Raskin doing that last season? Or the latter,
different sort of player. I think Raskin's, in terms of, he's very combative and he can get about and press people, but in terms of dictating the tempo of the game, I don't think that would be, for me, would be Raskin's strong point. I think that's why Rothwell was brought in, to kind of potentially be that role. So it would be a position I think that Rangers will still be looking at. But
you've not seen the best of Raskin. You've not seen the same kind of player that you were seeing maybe across the last 3-4 months of the previous campaign.
But I think that goes with the players that's in the team. You know, if you've got players in the team that you feel confident run about, as I say, it's all new players that are coming in. They don't know, you know, what do I get him? What kind of pass do I get him? You know, what connections? You know, where do I play it? You know, it seems to be, as I said earlier, it seems to be everybody's doing their own bit, just their bit.
So
they're not doing a team bit. They're doing a bit. I want to be the one that's going to get pass marks here or whatever. And until they establish themselves in the team and they all start playing with each other, they'll not get better until it happens.
Ultimately, Rangers are giving up lots of chances at their goal, and that's not just from last night. That's been,
it's 101 chances across a couple of games.
That's a high volume. So if that was to continue, they're going to lose games. In isolation, they'll pick up performances, but it won't be enough to go and be successful. I think, and the flip side of that, one shot on target for Rangers at a home European game. Over the years, we've seen Rangers obviously take the game to teams and look a lot more confident than they did last night. So right now, you're looking at it, both boxes. It just doesn't seem to be there at the moment, at this moment in time. And I think collectively as a group, they aren't defending as a team. You can see that. I think there's guys jogging back. The third goal last night, it's got to be all hands on the deck, trying to stop teams getting it so easy on your goal, because Rangers are having to really work for chances in the opposition box.
What did you make of Russell Martin's post-match comments, Ruffy?
Strange. You know, strange. I think he's just trying to keep it all together. He knows there's a lot of people now talking about what we're talking about, you know, and he's trying to be positive. He's trying to pick the good things out of the game, you know, and stay away from all the bad stuff, you know, and trying to have people to believe what he's saying is going to happen, you know, because at this moment in time he's got to convince, obviously, the owners, but more importantly, he's got to convince the supporters.
And the players.
And the players, yeah. I mean, you have to have a team talk afterwards, and every dressing room, as Scott said, has got a leader or somebody who's going to say something that everybody else is going to go, well, he's right. But if you have a dressing room, everybody's just going to sit there and accept it. You know, you need people who have been there and done it to get the rest of them out of it.
Do you think he went too early with his criticisms in the aftermath of that Motherwell game? You've almost boxed yourself into a corner that now, having come out once and been very scathing about performance levels in a display that, you know, he's maybe went too early with that level of criticism.
No, I didn't know, because I genuinely didn't think it was a big level of criticism. I think he's basically calling guys out for running and wanting to do the hard yards and what he expects from his midfielders. So I didn't think that was heavy criticism at all. I think that was the fairest split. We'd all watched the game. It was right. It was the right sort of analysis. I didn't think it was chucking players under the bus. I think players have got to take responsibility as well, because the least you can do in midfield playing for a club like Rangers is run about and be combative, and then when you have the ball, show a bit of quality. Unfortunately for Rangers on the day, they came up against a Motherwell team who they didn't quite think were going to play the way they did, and they could play through because their press was a yard off them, and it made Motherwell really comfortable in the game. So that it's not like Rangers are coming up against a Motherwell team on that first day of the season where they sat in and defended for lives. Motherwell played them at football. Then Dundee go and do what you expect a team to do. Ibrox completely stifle them. They don't have the ideas in the final third.
Chances Dundee had in that game.
Yeah, and that's from Rangers obviously been losing the ball, and then you talk about the set pieces, and like I said, we're coming to Sunday, that will be exactly what St Mirren do. They have the height, they've got aggression throughout their team, and they'll make Rangers defend.
Would you go along with that, Ruffy, or do you think that maybe some of those criticisms could have been said privately and that there's a public perception, whereas now you've got to a point where you've boxed yourself in with those kind of comments because you can't keep going and being as scathing as that in the aftermath of it?
No, I think he was trying to make a point, and when you make that kind of point, you've got to back it up, and he did back it up, because the two people that he's talking about weren't playing in the next game. So that means he's dropped two of his most experienced players, and if you would think the rest of them would go, well, if they're going to drop the two, I better buck up my ideas here and start producing the goods. So, and he would look for some kind of...
That was arguably their best performance after that Millwall game.
Yeah. So sometimes you've got to do these things as a manager, but sometimes it's got to work, and you've got to watch, you've got to know the individuals that you're picking out are going to deal with it properly, because if they don't deal with it properly, then you're going to lose them.
Last night, you've got to think that Stephen Robinson would have watched that game and just thought, rubbed his hands together and thought, I can't wait for Sunday afternoon. At lunchtime, there's been a big hullabaloo about this tie, obviously. Rangers were going to take the time so that they could just prepare for the two legs over Bruges. Then the game was back on when you saw the points differentials and what it might mean going into the Celtic game. What does that do now for Sunday in terms of pressure and the amount of pressure that it puts on them to get an immediate response?
I think that's just the reality of playing at a club where you demand to win every week. So you can look at it both ways. You can look at it as, should they maybe took it off, or if you're a player who performed like you did, and obviously the team cohesion wasn't there in the first half, then it's a chance to go and put it right. So that's what you would fully expect from the Rangers players, to take on that challenge and go and show that there's a bit of character there. But on the flip side, as you says, Stephen Robinson would have watched the last 5 games, because that's what you would do. You would look at the set pieces, you would look at chances that teams have threatened against them, and it is cross balls. And at the same time, it's times where Rangers are playing out and it's maybe a bit loose in possession. They're on top of the Rangers back four. So for Stephen Robinson, he is that physical side, as I says. They have aggression. They have legs in midfield. From a Rangers point of view, it's a chance to show character and go and put the performance of last night right on Sunday. Rangers
have struggled in Paisley. I don't think they won there last season. They lost in Boxing Day, and I think they drew later on in the campaign. A tight ground like St Mirren will have. It's an awkward place.
I said that last week, that St Mirren now is turning into the team that teams don't want to go. There's sometimes there's a team that you hate going to, because you know what you're going to get. You're going to get physical battle. You're going to get everything else that goes with it. I think as far as Rangers are concerned now, he's got a wee bit of team selection now, because if he thinks he's still in this midweek tie, he's got to look at his team selections for the weekend, because it's going to be that kind of game. You might pick up injuries to his best
Do you
players.
think he can look as far as the Bruges game again? I think
this game is huge.
Yeah.
I think this game...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's caught in two now. He'll be taking this game, he's now put himself under pressure to win it, plus he's got the midweek game, so he's got a big selection in hand.
The problem too, but is the noise builds. If he doesn't come away from Paisley on Sunday with all 3 points, that the noise goes up again. You saw how toxic it was at points at Ibrox last night, at half-time and at full-time. Anything else other than a win on Sunday just invites further pressure.
For me, when you're trying to build something, as Russell Martin's obviously saying in the press conferences, you could lose games, you can maybe not win games, but the performance is the biggest thing here. How's the team clicking? What are they like in possession? Are they stop surrendering chances to their team? That's what a performance has got to look like. Rangers could quite easily not win that game on Sunday, purely just based on the strength of St Mirren and how difficult it is to go. But I think he's got to give the fans a performance to where they can finally connect with the club, with the team, because at this moment in time, you're not getting the results that you want, and you're not getting performance. And as I said, that's not a good recipe looking forward.
The good thing for the players' point of view, there's not going to be a lot of Rangers supporters there. Before, St Mirren used to give Rangers 2 stands or whatever.
Now, one stand behind the goal.
And now they're saying, we're having the 3, you're having the 1. So from that aspect, the players that are struggling a wee bit, aren't going to have that many people breathing down their neck as they do at Ibrox, and at Ibrox you've got to deal with it. Might not be as bad, you know, with just being that one stand full.
Would you go along with that? Do you think it's easier sometimes not to be playing in front of your own fans when there's a...
Well, you can. The one thing about playing at St Mirren, if you're getting beat 3-0 and you're going to hit a corner, you'll hear your own fans because they're right on top of you. You could pick out singular thoughts from fans that's that close to the pitch. So, for me, performance first and foremost. I think Rangers are needing, as I say, so that's in and out of possession and looking to be in some sort of control of the game, creating chances, defending properly. That will give them a bit of leeway, I think.
See Tavernier going back in?
Big decision. It really is. You know, obviously, if he's a good manager, he's obviously had a word with him, explained to him why it's happening, why he's doing it. And then Tavernier's been experienced enough to listen and take it on board.
Obviously, regardless of outcome, on Sunday, that game against Celtic will be huge on the 31st of August. Would it be ridiculous to be talking about the future of a manager on the 1st of September?
If you lose the next 3 games, no, I don't think it would. But it's all hypothetical. I think we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I think Rangers have got to look to Sunday. That is their biggest game at this moment in time. For me, Bruges game a step too far. What a lot of members of that squad have done, your Raskins, Diamandis and Igaman, your Dessers, they've been in a team that's beat Celtic the last 2 times. So you would expect them to obviously get round the new boys and explain that you can still win this game. You've got to take that game in isolation because you just never know how it's going to pan out. To answer your question, if the results over the period of the next 3 games weren't to go that well, then we're talking about a bit of noise. There would be huge noise.
Obviously, Celtic fans would quite have enjoyed watching that last night, but it's their turn now to be in action tonight. Ruffy, they look to take the final steps, the Champions League group stages. Have they got enough to get past Kairat Almaty?
You would think so, particularly at home. You know, I think the crowd again would demand it. It'll be a wonderful night. You know, I don't think the visiting team will experience what's going on before the game as it starts. It'll be an eye opener for them to be in that stadium and everything that goes with it. I still think they're creating enough chances. Okay, the St Mirren game was only 1-0, but could have been 3 or 4 quite easy. I think they would want to take a 3-0 if they could get that. You know, I think anything else would be a bit nervy. We actually don't. I mean, I'm sure Celtic know exactly how good this team are. You know, I think they get beat 3-2 at the weekend, so you don't really know the quality of what they are. I mean, they're not a Champions League team. They're not going to do anything in the Champions League. So you would think Celtic, with the experience that they've got and the squad that they've got, should be able to take care of it.
And obviously a huge trek for the return journey. Is it 3,500 miles or something? A 7-8 hour flight?
I've done that journey.
I was just about to say,
Astana.
did you go to Astana?
Astana.
How did you manage it?
We get a lovely plane.
I actually remember, was it straight after an Aberdeen game?
I can't
From
remember.
Aberdeen to Kazakhstan?
No, we didn't go Aberdeen. We were Glasgow Airport, but we kind of stayed on UK time, so nothing really changed. But listen, it's a difficult game. I think it is you look in terms of the travel. I watched a wee bit of them. The last 2, they're decent. I think Celtic, as Ruffy says, Celtic still got a huge amount of quality in their squad, and I think will be too strong for the Kazakhs.
Do you think he'll go with Maeda through the middle tonight, or do you think he'll stick with Adam Maeda in the line?
Well, obviously they've watched them and he'll decide, you know, which the 2 are going to cause this team more problems. You know, it might be just a team selection to suit the night, you know, but I think Adam Maeda would really want to play. He needs to score. He needs to score on one of the big nights, because I'm not saying the fans are turning against him or anything like that, but for his own mindset, he needs to score goals in European football.
On the biggest stages of all.
Yeah.
His biggest performance for me last season was away at Aston Villa. I thought he was outstanding that night. So it'll be interesting to see if he goes Maeda, because obviously you can see he's trying to work with the Kieran Tierney-Maeda partnership with that left. We've seen that dovetailing a bit against Aberdeen. So it'll be interesting to see how he does shape. You'd expect James Forrest to come. To come in, I obviously trust him, and for me, still looks a real threat down that right side. Yeah, so.
Brendan Rodgers has been a bit tetchy about transfer talk, incessant transfer talk. We would have to say, is it fair to say that it looks as though the club are just gambling on waiting to see if they go into the Champions League, and then they'll maybe make their moves when they know what the
Well,
financial situation is going to be.
We obviously don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You would like to think from a professional point of view there are things, there are negotiations on with certain players, 2-3 players maybe, they have said to themselves, okay, which is a wee bit of a gamble. I don't think they should be gambling. I think if the deal's there to bring in a player, bring him in, pay the money. You've got the money, you know, and a lot of the supporters are wondering, why are we haggling over small amounts of money? You know, why don't we just get a player and pay what the club want? But I think players will come in, but I think they'll want to get this one out the road. And if they don't get this one out the road, I think all hell will be.
Is it also the case, Scott, you have been in this position as a player with clubs wanting you and chatting to you in the build-up to a move, that players themselves might sit and wait and say, I want to see whether or not you've got Champions League football, because that's quite a substantial carrot to offer.
Just pure, I think, in terms of Celtic, and obviously the route you've went down there in terms of the Champions League, that depends what market Celtic are looking at for their striker. That's the fact that it's kind of dragged out. I would feel that the market they're looking at would be someone who they want to spend money on, just purely for the length of time that it's taken, and it's been a position obviously Brendan Rodgers has spoken about. But for me, I think even for a Celtic point of view, they've still got a huge amount of quality in that squad, and I would firmly expect them to overcome that leg and go through.
Are supporters right to be irked at the fact it's taken so long to get deals over the line?
Well, supporters are just supporters. They say the club with 80 million, 100 million in the bank, they expect players to come through the door. You know, every club loves a new player. You know, somebody to talk about at work and
until they're no good.
And then when they bring them in and they decide 12 million's too much, he's hopeless. No, that kind of thing. The supporters in their own right are just supporters. They're supporting the club. They want to see players coming in. They want to see good players. They want to see players winning games for them. They will be disappointed, but there's nothing in the results yet have tipped them over the edge. You know, as Brendan Rodgers says, we're just motoring along.
Yes.
But all you need is one bad one, you know, and then you hear the supporters directing their fury at whoever they're going to direct it at. And I don't think Celtic are there yet, but this 2 games that are coming up are very important.
Okay, Celtic Rangers aren't the only Scottish clubs that we've got in Europe. A massive game at Easter Road in Pittodrie tomorrow night as well. How do you fancy Hibs' chances against Legia Warsaw?
Yeah, I seen Hibs on Sunday. 6 changes away to a Livingston team who have started the season well. Chaiwa came in middle of the park, looked really good. Clegy up front obviously hasn't had much game time, but showed that he could be really effective. Listen, nobody's taking Kieran Bowie out of the team just now. He's absolutely flying. So what I've seen of Hibs, I think they look out of possession, look really, really comfortable without the ball, and they always pose that threat. They've got a bit of pace in the team, they've got a bit of dig in the middle of the park. Jamie McGrath probably in the last leg against Partizan was a big miss in terms of his quality in that position. You see Josh Mulligan coming in, having an impact as well. So I like the look of that tie for Hibs. I don't want to put too much pressure on them, but I've seen a bit of Legia. Again, we're talking about teams defending cross balls. Lost a lot of goals recently to cross balls. Hibs obviously we know with the quality they have. Nicky Cadden's got that left foot, and Martin Boyle obviously goes down that side and puts a lot of balls into the box. So I fancy Hibs. I do fancy Hibs for that game tomorrow night.
It won't be quiet, that's for sure.
It looked a great atmosphere. It looked fantastic. You know, the stadium is up there as one of the best. And everybody talks about, you know, Tynecastle being a right cauldron, but I think Easter Road now is becoming that as well. I think the fans are right behind the scene. They enjoying everything that's going on. I just hope they learn game by game in European football. You know, some of the goals are losing are a wee bit iffy, and you'll get punished against better sides. So the more games they play in Europe, the more good results they get, and the supporters are behind them. Yeah, I hope they do well.
It's interesting though, I looked at that game on Sunday and I wondered if maybe they would slip up against Livingston, just because you're thinking 120 minutes, the physical impact of that, the mental impact of it, the fact that they came through it and won it fairly comfortably in the end. Does it point to the fact that they've got the legs, they've got the squad to go and cope with fighting on a dual front this term? Yeah,
but it definitely points to the squad. I think in terms of what that does for the confidence and belief throughout the squad is a big thing. It is a fixture. I think if you asked any player in the Premiership, right, you've got 120 minutes on Sunday, you've got a cup game against Livingston at Almonville, which you usually know how difficult that's going to be, but They went about their business, they had great energy in the midfield. And I felt Hibs controlled the game for large spells. I'll tell you who else was outstanding. Grant Hanley was excellent. He obviously came in for Rocky Bashiri, but I was at the game and I was sitting alongside him. The amount of communicating he was doing, the amount of times he got his head on something, I was really impressed with Grant Hanley. And I think David Gray, looking at your squad overall, you've got a guy who can come in at the back, you've got the striker who made a real impact, obviously gets his first goal for the club. And then the boy Chai won midfield, who had great energy. He actually now has some selection headaches come Thursday.
Pittodrie 2 tomorrow night.
Yeah,
Aberdeen.
we've not seen a lot of Aberdeen. You know, everybody thought that going to Capello there at the weekend would be a wee bit shaky, but they seem to come through it quite well. But again, Aberdeen, one of these teams that have been failing in Europe, so they've got a lot of new players in there, quite a lot of foreign players in there. Maybe that will help them gel together. So yeah, we want all the teams in, and let's hope they can do that.
Okay, that's all we've got time for this afternoon. We'll have more from Jimmy Tilleen and more from David Gray as the day goes on. But thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to PLZ's YouTube channel. And also, if you enjoy this content, you can get so much more of it on PLZ Premium.